all set.
Great. First of all, just on the EV chargers, they're up and running. I think, I don't know if we had the latest finances on it, but you can see the big Cybertruck out there charging overnight. Actually, I was at a concert in Bar Harbor, so came back over through here last night. My wife came from Castine, then we grabbed cars, and there was a car out charging overnight too. And I think we've pretty much put as much money in revenue that we had gained from the other places with our little sign in 1 week.
Yeah,
So-
we've well exceeded that, yeah.
So we're going to continue to monitor that. We haven't done really any advertising. It is on Google, but there's other pieces that we can do to kind of help with marketing and making sure people know it's signage, how it gets here. So we'll continue to kind of monitor usage, but early signs are good. I think there's kind of two things to this is, it's around 10,000 was basically the city side of the investment post credits. So we'll, as we noted before, we pulled from, I think, one of the reserve accounts to fund the initial piece, and then we're going to replenish that reserve account with this going forward. So we'll see how fast that investment's recouped over time. And then there's also just the nature of the fact that we're not spending $7,000 a year on the free chargers that were, the 2 free chargers that were in the Franklin lot. So those have been deactivated. So we're not spending $7,000, so there's every year we're kind of, I wouldn't necessarily put us in the black on that, but at least from the city's side of things, we're going to stop spending that money. And we've quadrupled our capacity of EV chargers. So we had 2 for free at $7,000 a year. Now we have 8, which the city portion is around $10,000, and it's already gained us a couple $100 and in a week of use. And we'll probably do some analysis moving forward on, is that growing year to year? As Ashley in her window, she's seen a bunch of folks go to the, they stop, they go to the downtown business owners. So hopefully it's also going to encourage more of that tourism and people coming here to frequent our businesses as opposed to the other chargers, which I've used a fair amount. Like you see the usual suspects, they seem to be more local folks that are using the free chargers consistently. So hopefully we're kind of in the right direction of the EV charger capacity.
Great. Could I ask a couple questions about that? You say that the Franklin Streets are deactivated.
Right.
Define that for me. Does that mean you tore them? I haven't been over there. Did you tear them out, or you just made them that they don't work again?
Yeah, powered down signage saying the new lots over here. We reached out to the company or the nonprofit that originally helped install those chargers, and the contract had it, the city would provide the electricity for free. I think for the time frame that, I could see why people would do that. So we're reaching out to see what they want to do with those other chargers. If we don't get response back at some point, we might think about them if there's future EV vehicles in the fleet, putting one at the highway garage or at the wastewater plant, kind of monitoring usage over there. And if not, maybe we sell them for, a bit of cash. But
My question to that is, and maybe this is, when cities and school departments decide that they need something new, a new building, they get a new building, and then all of a sudden, during that process, the existing building didn't make sense to renovate it, and then the new building comes, and then the old building gets renovated for repurposing. And so, as opposed to spending money tearing them apart, is there an add-on that you can keep that capacity at a chargeable rate?
yeah, that was the problem with the contract. Is it's specified in there that it doesn't allow us to charge for those EVs, and that if we do, we have to return them to the owner. We have thought, and again, we're trying to
Who is the owner?
Thriving Climate to Thrive, I think.
What is it?
Climate to Thrive.
Okay. It's too bad. It's too bad to tear down capacity if there could be a rework.
We had thought of one idea on maybe bringing them to the harbor and then putting like a parking kiosk there so that you could essentially charge for the space, not on the charger, and then have, and then we can encourage some people to go down to the harbor as well and have some capacity. So let me look into that a little more, Steve.
I'm asking what the problem would be with right where they are, without all this moving, and what is there an option with the existing owners to rework that to? What do you have, 8 spots now?
8 spots here now, yep.
And 2 over here?
2, yeah, but 2.
These are much faster charging, right?
They're a little bit faster, a couple kilowatts faster. And they also, yeah, just trackable, payable. We have a special code for our municipal cars that can go in there. So it's, we tried the sign up there to get people to do donations to a beautification fund. That didn't really get a lot of input.
I just,
so.
before we spend money destroying infrastructure, I just would have to wonder if there's a rework to, maybe they're not very desirable, maybe they're old technology, maybe they're this, maybe they're that, but it's still an electric connection for somebody that might need electric connection, if you could rework the ownership part of this. I'm just
Yeah.
asking, because tearing it apart and putting it back together has got to be expensive.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to it. We talked to Public Works again. We had a meeting earlier this week on just, we're gonna, for the time being, just deactivate, put a sign up that there's, the new chargers are over here. And plus, we have good capacity here. I haven't seen those fully full yet, so I'm not.
Has that
necessarily
been
about that.
done yet, or are you talking about doing it?
That's been done. I think that should
There's
be.
no juice to those over.
Yeah, I saw them last night because I parked in that parking lot last night, and they were like covered with like it's
Okay.
clear they're not
Yeah,
operating.
yeah, I think they did. You know, again, visually too. I don't like just having infrastructure that's not operable. So I would like to take them down and not just have a sign up and a bag over them. So
So I would imagine, I don't know the organization very well, but I would imagine that they'd be, I hope they'd be willing to understand, like, hey, look, we've got these 8. You wanted us to have these to promote EVs. We're doing that now. Can we work to figure out what to do with these things? And
yeah.
I would hope they'd be amenable to that.
It's just,
And I'll check out in the technology piece too. There's a couple of these exact same things in Castine actually, at Maine Maritime Academy. I imagine Climate Thrive. They're free. Unlike Ellsworth, I'm more okay charging up on those when I can. I like paying for my electricity when I'm in Ellsworth, so I did donate a lot to the other ones.
the other thought of that too, is there a workaround where if they have to be free, does it have to be Ellsworth that pays for it?
At the same time, I wouldn't want to compete with
Yeah,
our own
yeah,
machines.
yeah.
So I wouldn't want somebody else to offer free charge when they could come to
Well,
us
if the
to pay for them.
capacity exists like you say it does, it shouldn't be a problem, because those will be full anyway.
But what I'm saying is we're not full. Right now, with the 8 chargers, we might be a little over capacity. Now, you always want that, right? You want to have people to be able to
Yeah.
come in.
I
when
just
they
hate
can.
spending money to destroy infrastructure that might be usable in another fashion.
I will definitely look into it.
I'm not an electric car bug either, but if you've got the infrastructure, I'd hate to spend good money tearing it down if there's not some workaround.
Yep. Also, I know, Steve, you a little bit about this. We got a request for $2,500 for our contribution to the Down East bus service system. Down East wasn't part of the regular budget process. I think we're a couple years behind on what the payment is. They gave us like a list of payments for it. There's never been a contract for it. I think it's just moved forward. You know, mostly this is kind of Bar Harbor who pays a ton of money for this, and Jackson, I think, Jack's Labs, it's kind of, but there's a lot of people here that use it, and that seems like a reasonable cost, but it was an unbudgeted expense, so, I feel like that's reasonable. That's been the same $2,500, it looks like, over the last 8 years or so since that service was here. Whenever I get something like this, like to move to council, I might want to look towards a contract, what account would that go under? Typically we'd have that as a nonprofit or an external service as part of our budgeting piece. So we're going to keep track of it. I don't think that's it's a good service for the city of Ellsworth, and they're not like threatening to stop coming here or anything, but just want to clean that up so it's more predictable and in the budget process.
So it's been paid for several years,
Yes.
correct?
Except for the last few years, in the last 2 years, and they kind of reached out like,
Why did it stop?
It's a good question. It could have been because we didn't have a contract and we didn't have it as part of the request cycle. So last year, the year before that, they weren't billing us, and there was no contract for it. So we didn't even know it really existed.
They did send a bill in last fiscal year and it was denied to be paid. We in the finance department didn't pay it because it wasn't budgeted, and it fell in the outside organizations like social services. And because they didn't put a request in, it was denied at that point. Because again, finance is all new people, and we didn't know that they didn't typically put in the request, and it was just something that the city paid them yearly. So we didn't know that a request wasn't needed, and it just didn't get paid, and then this year the same thing happened.
It sounds like we just need to get it in the formal process, and it's an important
Yep.
aspect, I think, of our infrastructure.
$200
and
a month.
transportation.
I can't believe that there's not enough. There must be Ellsworth residents reaping $200 a month in benefits.
Oh, I see.
Am I correct?
Every day they're down there getting a ride to the, I'm sure
Yeah, they
working.
go to Bangor, I know it goes to, Bar Harbor.
And it's
So-
free to the residents?
I don't know, it's the
I
Islander,
think there's a
so,
nominal fee.
yeah.
But it's public transportation for
Correct.
Ellsworth at $2,500 a year.
Correct.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I think it's hundreds of thousands for the other cities. that
Yeah,
they-
we're way less than
But that-
anybody around us.
I'm not against, if Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth are getting benefit from it, go for it.
So I think we'll clean up the process, make sure it's part of so there's notification and, it's in our system going forward, but. The other piece, all right, the commitment, I know we had some, it was supposed to be a conversation mostly about the mill rate, although I think we need to, I'll probably bring back to Finance Committee next week or the week thereafter, a little bit more of a mill rate conversation, especially on the new valuation piece, which, and kind of where we're at. I know in the budget process, you might remember we had like, if you don't go as high on the percentage, here's how it changes the mill, and then here's how it changes different property valuation rate increases. 2.9% is the levy, but that's where the other part of the math doesn't necessarily mean everybody in Ellsworth has a 2.9% increase to their tax bill the previous year, depending on the mill change, depending on the valuation rate change. Those distributions get turned around, so I want a little more of a robust conversation on that piece. I think Finance Committee is an appropriate place to kind of bring that for next steps. The commitment to, I've had one conversation yesterday to start getting to the bottom of this. I apologize, until that last meeting, my expectation was that the data needed for Sue and our other teams, as previously discussed with staff, was going to be between the August 4th and August 10th timeframe, that was the commitment in writing to have the information that the other teams needed to move forward. So that was the first time that I had heard about that we might not make that deadline internally in order to get the tax bills out on time. So I know Sue did a lot of work to bring that forward to council and to other pieces. That's on me. I should have known that earlier.
It's not a new problem for Ellsworth.
No, but it's a problem we had last year, and I promised to solve. And at the end of the line, it's my responsibility to make sure that didn't happen again. I'm not quite at the point where I'm going to say we're going to have to delay. This time around, I would like to delay the date if we actually had to do that, not just send out like, hey, you're getting a bill, and we're not going to charge you the interest on the late because we're the ones sending it out late. Like, I thought that was too clunky last year. So I'd say the worst case scenario would be more of a, we've caught it in time, or we could change the deadline. But as we talked about the last meeting, there's debt service payments. There's a lot of other downstream effects of changing the time when we bring in tax revenue. We have our TAN, obviously. We pay interest on the TANs as kind of the bridge loans as we're waiting for the tax revenue to come in. So, I need to do a lot more digging in. I haven't had a meeting at 11 today. Probably going to work with Sue and our IT department, who have some dependencies on how, once they receive the information, their timeframes for sending it out. So, going to kind of do another little Agile Scrum. I don't know if it'll be war room level, where we're just going to meet up there every day for 2.5 weeks to make sure we're going to be there, so I can get. But the first step for me is going to get the clarity on do we have the resources internally or potentially externally to ensure that the data needed for the commitment gets us to our current timeframes for bill distribution. That'll be kind of first step, and then a notification at probably next Finance Committee meeting. I'll have that by next Friday on if I'm confident that there's no need for a change for the bill sending, or if there will need to be on the next council meeting a deadline change on the tax bills. So we'll have more information next Friday, but
This is a good time to bring this up. In June's council meeting, I voted against the appointment list that you had of people to appoint to certain. I voted against it, and the chair was pretty rattled by that and asked me to be more specific, and I said, that's all you're getting. This is a great example of what I voted against. The appointments, that's a great example. I didn't think it was fair when I was pressed for that answer to start pointing fingers at individuals with names and such. However, this is a great time to say, that's why I voted against your list of appointments. And
And-
there's a classical example.
yeah, and we can talk more. I think that was a tough one. That was because to me there was also, I don't know, I kind of saw your piece of it. I know there was a technical piece on voting up or down in the slate, but then there's also like an individual. We talked about this with boards and commissions too, how we get better. Like, why are we doing this? I think in some ways it's like if it's just a blanket, if it's not now, and now we have a performance review process. We have these other pieces. There's like something else to it. Same thing with the boards and commissions. Like, we really have no process for reappointments that's in the each of the ordinances for each individual. There's a process for appointments, and that's one of the project management team. We've talked about that, standardizing the boards and commissions. So, point taken, Steve.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
as an example, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I didn't think it was fair that I call out individual people when I was asked of that. I just said, that's all you're getting. But here we are, and it's a good time to say that that reappointment may not have been a good one.
The next piece is the workshop. So our teams are working internally on a project management team update, and we've kind of been tiering a lot of the things we're working on that we think are pretty high priority. I know we sent out kind of an initial discussion of our general strategic backlog, some internal that, council probably doesn't need to know about too much. Some we probably need a little more buy-in or direction from council that this is, in general, a priority we'd like to move forward with, or we really don't care to see this in the city council meeting for approvals or more information. So that meeting from our team is, we've got some great things there. So I'm going to be sending out an email probably early next week. We have the first workshop on that Monday with a proposed agenda. I think I'd really like to do a little bit on strategy, a little bit on things that some staff members that have something that's come to the council meeting in August would like some input on. I know Mike's got a couple of pieces there. And then a little bit on our kind of strategic backlog area. So and I know we had some good discussion. I was wondering if maybe Nancy, if you could take maybe a little more active role. I know you're so good at it with like the vision, goals, kind of consolidating those pieces. I've seen you do such great presentations on that. And Patrick, maybe, I know we talked about it at the meeting itself, maybe a little more into the, the strategic backlog, the prioritization. How does that fold up to the larger goals pieces? I feel like those are the two big streams as a council that we'll need to start dialing in on. So
Maybe Nancy and I can.
Yeah, I'm happy to support you in that. I'd like to be part of that, yeah. And can work with Patrick on the, combining the big picture with the, okay, and how do we get there?
yeah, I think that's really kind of what's
Yeah.
needed. Here's the big picture. Here's how it flows up to the big picture. And then my big change on to kind of John Stein's point is like, I don't know, I have some issues with comp plans and these plans, and they put on shelves, and 70 to 80% of it's the exact same as the previous comp plan. Everybody does so much in our government theory work. We call that strategic theater.
Oh my God.
And everybody has a lot of fun. You do the meeting, you spend 6 months in the planning, and like 6 months of work potentially has now elapsed. And 8 or 9 of those things you knew were critical. But at the same time, I don't know, hearing John's piece too, everything in our strategic backlog, besides like operational pieces internally, aligns to some level of the comp plan. So we're working as a team on making those expressly clear and where they're at. And then, it's a living document, and trying to reframe it myself on just maybe there have been cities and towns that have done this. Like, let's accomplish the comp plan. Let's be the city council that has gone after it, and we'll fail in some areas, we'll succeed in some areas, we won't go to some areas because we'll find out like this is not a valuable piece of government. I know, Steve, I can tell you'll probably want to just say, don't do it, not government's piece. But
Shrink government.
we should have that conversation. I think and to me, that's an important one because a lot of times strategic planning is about choosing what not to do because we don't have enough resources to do it all. But we can do the important stuff that's really going to help with people's lives. The area that we call market failures in economics. That's why government exists. The private sector isn't looking to build Knowlton Park and help people with that kind of playground activity. That's why we brought in a Parks and Rec director to upgrade our 27 park assets. Those are places that the private sector can't necessarily go into. So what are the things where government, as a city, that we're responsible for? Plowing, maintaining our parks and community assets, our finances, a lot of the kind of, we've had some housing shortages. How do we streamline our regulations to encourage development? We're already seeing a lot of great development. So what are the areas that government can do better at in City Hall? And what are the pieces that are not for government and that we shouldn't be expending a ton of effort on because it might not be our place. So.
Charlie, can I just add on to the comprehensive, I love strategic theater, I've never heard that before. The last 3 years of my day job anyways, and particularly the last 6 months, has been working at the state level to revamp the comprehensive plan process.
Yeah.
A bill passed, it didn't go as far as I wanted it to, but in the future, you will see less time devoted to the process, and the whole point of it is so that there is still the energy to do the implementation. When you exhaust a committee of volunteers and staff and the appointed and elected people on a plan, and everybody just has to walk away because they're exhausted, you haven't succeeded. So in time, everybody's known that's been a problem, and there's a lot of work on how to improve it. So the whole point is, to what you were saying, we do the planning and still have the energy and the interest to do implementation, and I think Ellsworth is poised for that now.
Absolutely.
We've done good planning, good outcomes, a wish list a mile long, so now we
Prioritize it.
what to do now is really the decision in front of us, so.
I'm excited. I also think maybe like we get a bigger table and we sit down with Sue at something more like this than the dais. I don't know if you guys are opposed to that, but I feel like the workshop vibe, I know in our own meetings and my office with our project management team, it just creates a good collaborative atmosphere as opposed to, which I think is in the
We're the
spirit.
grown-ups table, and we don't always have to be, so.
Right. Cool. And then, last but not least, there's the 4-day work week. We had a good discussion at City Council. Thank you to Sue and Carrie and this group, especially to Steve. I thought, I have Ebony just transcribe what you said. I think it's the perfect. Nobody could have said it better on the need to move to this piece. It's 44 hours instead of 42 hours. So I'm actually also excited that we'd have more expansive hours. I'm targeting hopefully around August 11th for that implementation timeframe. I think one of the big takeaways here is that we have some internal operational issues, but City Hall open from 7 to 6 p.m. Consistency Monday through Thursday. That'll be probably some of the most expansive City Hall hours opening in the state of Maine. It's an addition of hours, but not an addition of the paid pieces, as we talked about, Steve. So that'll be, I think that'll be excellent for our customers. It's going to, as you mentioned in there, there's going to be a little bit of realignment, but over time, that's going to be the predictable schedule that people can.
I'd just like to weigh in on that. I think there's some confusion on that meeting that I was seeing from staff. And I think, and I understand the confusion. I think the conversation should be, you've heard from the staff. In some regards, this come from the clerk staff during the union negotiation. And I think there's some confusion about City Hall hours and personal life balance. And I think the process should be very clear. You take everybody's idea, you make a decision, and then you, to the citizens of Ellsworth, of when their hours of business is going to be open at City Hall. Then you go back around in a individual and say, okay, how am I going to make this work for you? How can I work this? Here's my plan.
Yep.
How are we gonna take this group of people and make it the best we can for you to achieve this plan? And what I was hearing that night was some confusion, that business hours means dictated hours to staff, and I don't think that's the case. I think that it just needs to be clear that business hours is one thing. Management needs to figure out how to cover those business hours with the least effect to the people that are covering those hours.
Yep.
And so I think there's two processes there, and the process, take input from the staff, you make a decision, then you gotta turn around and go back to the staff and say, hey, how can we make this work for you? Here's the decision. We just need to find a way. What, collectively in this department, there's 5 people, what can everybody work out between them that would work best for everybody? And it'll change in 6 months, for sure. But I think that I saw some confusion there.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I reiterated that to staff, including some staff who came forward there that day, which is that there would be that level of flexibility. And so also reiterated at our all-employee barbecue yesterday that, those are the City Hall operating hours. There's kind of 2 streams to this. If you're an hourly employee, we need to figure out that you have hours that you're here that, equal to the 40 or whatever is in the contract for the hours you're required to be here. For management level employees, there's, the hourly to the specifics of City Hall hours. It could be, you're here from, for myself, with Sarah, we both have kids. Sarah's probably going to take the morning piece on the 7, and I'm going to take the evening piece on the 6, and we're going to do some check-ins on Fridays. And yeah, I don't think anybody's worried about getting less than 40 from me in these areas. It's a 24/7 job in a lot of ways, and for the vast majority of managers, that's the category we're in. So we're gonna, to your point, Steve, and that's the whole point of this too. I talked about this in the radio last week, or actually Wednesday, 2 days ago, and they just had a news article about that they talked about in the radio on how good this is for employee health and for productivity. A big study just came out on it. I think it's going to be better for the customers in our current schedule. That's the prime reason I was interested in moving towards this, based on the 3 different schedules we have on 3 different sets of days during the week, which is not customer friendly. 7 to 6, as discussed with the clerks union, gets us to that 44 hours instead of 42, so we have more expansive hours. And then let's also get the benefits for our employees to help improve retention in a way that works best for them, especially for those that have children or may live far outside and of Ellsworth, so that it's.
And it's not cemented. What happens, what's going on in September of this year may be different. There may be different dynamics that the schedule needs to change, not our open hours, but the schedule, the dynamics of how to cover those open hours needs to change amongst the people. You may have a new employee come that can fill a void that someone with children need. There's all of those things. This is a bit of a digression, but I think it's worth saying. As a small business guy, I have listened to many people come forward and say, are we going to be closed on Friday? Well, my response to that is, if you want Friday off, put it in the calendar and take it off. But don't make me close my business because you want the day off, okay? Tell me that you want the day off, that's fine. You can have the day off, but don't make me close my business by asking if we're open, where the question should be, can I have the day off? You follow where I'm going. That's a real aggravation from business management point of view. If you want the day off, that's fine. But don't ask me to close my business because you want the day off. Ask me for your day off, and you can have the day off. I've just got to figure out how to cover those hours. So there's 2 different dynamics to that.
And to me, there's kind of 2 things that are related here too, which is consistency and predictability with our customers. And so that's City Hall office hours, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 6. It's open 2 or more hours than our current Monday through Wednesday this time, Thursday this time, Friday this time. And then it's related to the tax commitment piece too. Here's when your tax bill is going to come out. It's not going to be late. Here's these pieces. And then all the work we did in the budget process too. Here's what the increase will be. And knowing so in a good amount of time, these are kind of good government pieces that, are the blocking and tackling of what we need to do here. So creating that consistency for our customers.
Charlie, if I can just add what I'm hearing that's important it's kind of been touched on, but to nail it is when a person comes into City Hall during those times, 7 to 6, they will get the service they've come in for, that it won't be, well, the person who does that actually isn't here
Right.
at that time. They can come in with the expectation of coming in from 7 to 6, and whatever I need somebody, there will be a person here to do that. So that's, to your point about predictability, that I know when they're open and I know I can get whatever service I need
Yeah,
in
and
that time.
not to get too in the weeds, the only big area of that is the utilities coordination position, because that's a one-person kind of role with that specialization, whereas the clerks, the other,
Yeah.
they have a little bit more of a four-person unit that can do double coverage. So that's the one, I don't want to make it unfair to one individual
Yeah.
on kind of what their hours would be, but we'll figure that piece out. That's a smaller piece, so.
Got my
Cross-training.
water bill yesterday.
Cross-training, yep, and I know Sue's been working incredibly hard on that
Cross-training.
entire initiative. The clerks and teams now, and the tax collectors now have been cross-trained in almost all their pieces. The utilities piece is the one last one we really haven't gone into, but maybe this is an opportunity.
But I
for
mean,
that.
also code enforcement, planning, economic development, if people come in for a building permit between
Yep,
those hours, there will be someone who can.
somebody there, and those units have enough employees to kind of make that coverage. Same with the city manager's piece too. I want somebody from
Right.
city management to be here during those operating hours, whether it's myself or whether it's Sarah
Yeah.
or whether it's Ebony. So yeah, the utilities coordinator is the one where it's like, that's the one person, but to your point, Steve, cross-training, like, we can figure that out. That's a,
And if I may just add, even if there's 2 hours a day that utilities coordinator position is clunky, it isn't a perfectly smooth operation, but they leave here with what they come for.
yep,
I think that's better than coming here and getting turned away at the door because the person's not here. Even if it's a clunky process, as long as they leave with what they came for, it may not have been super smooth, but especially in the first year, I think that there's got to be some acceptance from Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth that, all right, it was a clunky process, it was aggravating, I should have been done in 10 minutes and it was 25, but you left here with what you come for. I think that's the key thing.
yeah. And to Sue's great credit, and I should say Amanda and Jessica from the teams, it's already been a customer upgrade over the last year. That the utilities coordinator position used to be in the wastewater plant.
Yeah, it's
So
great that it's here.
tons of customers would come here and they'd say, I need to pay my blank blank bill, and they'd say, like, drive over to the wastewater plant to talk to this person. And Sue and Amanda and the whole team, we worked on bringing that back. And then Jim, lickety splits, created that window and that new counter area for utilities coordination. I haven't heard complaints about that piece, but we brought that service back. That's already a customer service upgrade over the next year. So how do we, and that's a big part of, I think, Sue's effort to kind of cross-train, customer-centric mindset has kind of really been the two key pillars of her effort as a clerk, so.
Great.
That's it for, the last piece is the finance. So this might be the clunkiness too, is we might need to come in on Fridays even after August 11th until, we'd probably need a rules change to change this meeting to Thursday, if you'd be amenable to that, Thursday at 8 a.m. But we'll need a rules change for that, so we might have a couple meetings in August where it's not the right time of year for it. It's not January where we'd have to turn on the whole building and heat it up. So we'll come in a couple times where it won't be open for business operating hours, but we'll do our finance committee meetings.
So are we putting that on the August agenda?
The August agenda, yep. We should do an Augusta trip where we all go out there for a city.
I did it twice this week,
Forget it.
but usually once a week when I come. Honestly, if we ever wanted to do a field trip and a State House tour, it's a beautiful building.
Go to my
It's an
camp
experience.
afterwards.
I do like the idea of, I know,
Bad.
you have a camp out there?
In Vassalboro.
Okay, we skip the State House, we go to camp.
There we go. Professional development retreat.
Exactly.
That's it for me.
I have a finance question, maybe this is not a finance question, but where are you at with the why finance piece?
I had a meeting with Matt and the Friends in Actions and the Music Institute yesterday for a long period of time, and we're going to be coming at the August 4th meeting, Matt, myself, and those other stakeholders. It'll be a piece of this.
Nice.
I'm going to want to try to tailor it to be we've got Matt's got a new interim contract that I feel like we also need paper to work off of, and so that we can actually have something. The way we're thinking of it now, just to preview a little bit, is that the Y will be going towards more of a service provider in that building, in the same way that the Music Institute and the other Friends in Action are, and the square footage, discussion of how much space they use, how much cost it is. The city would essentially collect rents from all organizations moving forward. We're bringing in a Parks and Rec director. By the way, that person did say yes, and their background check cleared. I'll have an announcement on Monday so we can actually talk about that person's
Fantastic.
name and be a little more public. Their first day on the job will be August 4th. That'll be the day of the workshop.
Is that my time to hit him in the head at the first meeting?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, all right.
Get them all lined up, Steve.
Maybe let them unpack their boxes on their desk.
Oh, no.
Maybe
No,
just say hello. It's an option.
It actually was one of the questions about how they would approach the YMCA negotiation. And
In the
this-
interview process?
In the interview, and this person had a lot of good questions because it's complicated. And that was one of the things that we cued in on was, when you have an issue like this, it's important to ask good diagnostic questions, not to give solutions right away.
Really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the mistakes. I've kind of thought it was simpler. So Matt's kind of preparing that piece where the city would kind of take, ownership of the capital asset costs. So why would, in the near term, the big issue is going to be maintenance and operations of the building, which currently the city isn't quite capable of doing with facilities maintenance. But the school is going to come in, and for their pre-K piece, they have facilities pieces. They might have some assets that they can have operate the building in the future. So we'll maybe figure out a fee structure for what, in the near term, maybe month to month, that we pay the Y to operate and clean the building. And then we start to RFP it out and see if our current janitor and how we want to operate that building going forward and maximize it for best use in space. We did a walkthrough of all the buildings areas. I know the school has their ideas on, as they're expanding pre-K, maybe some adult ed education, which is currently in another location. They could have some, so that's kind of where we'll start the conversation. They've got, a new proposal to a new contract, which may have them more of a service provider in a similar area to the others. We collect the rents, we pay the Y to operate and clean the building for a certain period of time, and then we look towards taking that all over. And maybe the Y is the best organization to pay to do that type of. Maybe we can get a private organization to clean, or maybe we use the school's facilities. That's kind of where we're going, just to right size what the, we own that building, we operate that building. We charge service providers, whether it's our senior citizens or the Music Institute or the YMCA providing childcare, a fee to use that building. And that'll be, I think, the most fair and equitable and transparent going forward, as opposed to we pay them they pay us $1, they take the rents. I don't ever see that becoming like a fair, transparent system. So
Great.
that's kind of where we're at, Steve.
Well, thank you. I'd been quiet, I hadn't heard much about it, and so August 4th, we're gonna hear a little bit.
August 4th, and then Matt and I have a kind of finalization on Friday, so hopefully I might be able to get some paperwork ahead of time to send to you all, so it's not just, but I do also want to be cognizant, it could be a full workshop on that. Let's be trying to get more productive with our time on time limits, and, all right,
It's the whole point of the workshop,
Yeah.
is it's a set time for each agenda item.
boom, 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 here's all the things, and got some other stuff. Jason will probably do a little presentation on his streetlights proposal to swap out for the city to take ownership of them from Versant, swap them all to LEDs, likely get us cost savings in year one, or at least it's kind of a budget neutral piece, but want to have folks know about that. And it's one of those pieces, especially as the lights start to turn off in the state of Maine in October. I would like to be nice to have streetlights that work everywhere, and also to stop having Versant replace them and then charge us more for them in the future. So.
Can I suggest, Charlie, too, I'm going to review emails this morning, accepted the invitation to the morning to early afternoon tour with the Thriving Communities
Yep.
program, that even just 10 minutes on that workshop for our council members who can't make it.
Okay.
Just an update on what it was, if there's any materials that were shared.
Okay, yeah, we were thinking in the September would be a Thriving VPI double presentation, but if you'd like it in August, I can get.
It had been that day, so just anything,
Oh, it'll just been that day, so a quick.
I'm going to be talking about it regardless, so maybe we ought to just put it briefly on the agenda.
That's a great point.
Just, it's
a
that
little
same day, so.
a little report out, and hoping they'll be somewhat fun. And I know our project management teams thus far, Sarah's been doing a great job and Ebony's been doing a good job in our team on, but now it's like, when you get the tiers and this, get what's on the board and you talk about the progress, like you really feel like, here's the plan and here's how every single week we're moving forward to that. And then mirror that to the council on, here's what our teams are moving forward on, here's our progress. And putting some like true deadlines in the end of these things too.
Yeah.
Every single item has a, we expect to take this off the board on this date. And then what are the council meetings we're gonna need on this? What are the workshops we're gonna need on this? What are the things we're gonna need to line up, so.
And one more thing with that tour, I don't know who the invitation list is, but have we thought about inviting a reporter or two? Just so that they've got that background information as well about what's coming.
I'll ask Twyla about that in next week's project
Up
management
to
team.
you whether it's a fit or not, but it seems worth exploring.
Great. That's it for me.
Well, really quick, just going back to the 4-day work week, we will be looking at, for the warrant process, sending those out and requesting for digital signatures. Ash and I spoke, obviously, if we move the meeting to Thursday morning, the warrant most likely won't be done at that point unless we shift the whole process. So the goal is to have the warrant done, send those out for signatures and get those Thursday afternoon, so we can send checks out no later than Monday morning. So that's the goal with the 4-day work week change. So we're gonna probably start that process, go ahead and start that next week with the digital signatures. So just be looking for that next Thursday. Also want to touch base in regards to the ban that was approved back in December. This was for the roads, mostly was the roads and the Surrey Road. That was submitted for the bond application was submitted yesterday to the Maine Municipal Bond Bank because that's due by August 1st. So that's been taken care of. So we can transition that into a bond. And just really quick on the audit, we do have a draft management letter received yesterday afternoon that we have to review. I know there's a lot of critiques on there, and I'm gonna have thick skin because Ashley and myself were not here for most of that process as far as that fiscal year, but there's one thing I know as finance director is if we don't fix the issues that we have, then we're not doing anything. So once we get, look through this audit, our team's gonna get together and our goal is to implement and change and do whatever we can to make FY25 that much better. And like I said, I know we have a lot to work on. As weird as it sounds, I'm excited to start the process and get this going. We've already started working on things like grants and how to show those better in our system. And I know there's little things here and there that they're critiquing us on, and that's okay. Like I said, I'll take the thick skin and I'll work to be better. So, but that final audit, we should be seeing that here, like I said, any day, just based on the fact that we have that management letter now to review. So.
Can I ask one more? You're talking about changing the process for the warrant. If you can include, if there is anything of note, I mean, these come out usually Thursday night. It's not feasible to do a realistic review of all of this. So if there are things that warrant our attention or that you want to make sure that we're aware of rather than
Okay, yeah.
the
Kind of
stack.
highlight some of the ones that you
Yeah.
may question. Okay,
Yeah, anything noteworthy. Thank you.
absolutely.
Two things. One, the audit 2024, we knew, we know there's going to be stuff there. Some of those things we've rectified already. Some of them we haven't. But there's also a separate piece of this, as we discussed during the last budget process. Sue Lassard, former Bucksport town manager, is coming in to help us, on our current audit, or our current financial procedure, make sure we're best in class. It's one of our goals across organizations to create best in class units. As part of that contract, there are a couple of touch points with council themselves so that she can do a current analysis, not something that's looking back 2 years on when the people in this finance department weren't even here, but where are we currently at with our current systems and policies and procedures. And Sue will be coming to report it at some point to the council on kind of where we're at. And I almost consider it kind of like a little mini audit snapshot in real time so that we can really get more towards those perfect audits for 2026 that don't have any of these findings going forward. I think back to business consistency and transparency and trust. I really want the communities to not to have to say, well, that finance team wasn't here when that audit happened. They don't care about that. They just want to know that audits are published and we're not going to have a news story that's, showing bad finances in the city of Ellsworth. So,
Yeah, Ellsworth is getting a great value out with Sue helping out. I'm excited to have Sue come in and, help us out, for sure.
and then the second piece is I don't know if we need to come to the next council meeting or maybe, but the timeline for the bond and how that goes into our debt schedule. I know that's something this council wants to discuss. So like, is it a 10? Is it a 20? Is it split into 2? Is like, what's the median of all of the assets that are in there for bonding, and that we choose? And then also what financially we feel like feathers into the schedule. I know Steve's more on this is how much you bond for the asset for the time of its time frame of it. I'm more of a what's the, we don't want to have spikes in debt service or debt fall off and keep it a pretty consistent level. So I feel like we probably need a presentation on that, Nate, before that final decision on how many years it's going to be.
To speak to Steve's position on that, Steve's position is this, that I don't want to owe money on a dead soldier. So if we've got a truck, that's poor example, but if we've got a truck that's wore out and we still owe 2 years of financing on it, that's not good financing. If you've got a truck that you've got 2 years life left in and you don't have a payment on it, that's fine, okay? And even if it's a spike on repair bills, but I don't want to owe money on something that is not a usable asset. That's my big thing. Back to your audit situation. I think I'd like to press again to have a presentation from the auditors at the Finance Committee. Maybe at a workshop, one of our workshops too, but I'd like to see what they've got. I got a lot out of that every time I've seen that. And thirdly, a bad audit, if there is such a thing, is an opportunity for everybody. Auditors are supposed to come in and pick you apart. That's called an auditor. And maybe it's you, maybe it's your predecessor, maybe it's the department, maybe it's this. That's their job. They're not gonna feel value unless they rip into something. That's the fact of the matter. So just because there's a few black eyes in an audit, I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. I think a few black eyes in an audit is opportunity to fix it going forward. So I just want to press the words, let's not hide tomorrow with yesterday. The mistakes were made yesterday, fine. Let's not hide tomorrow with them. Let's make today and tomorrow a better day. And there's always going to be room for improvement in audits. If perfect audits came out, auditors wouldn't have a job. So think about that.
You have the beginnings of a country western song there. Let's not let
I couldn't
tomorrow-
carry a tune in a
We'll
wheelbarrow.
get somebody in, but you got the lyrics going. Let's not hide
Let's not
tomorrow
hide
with
tomorrow with
yesterday.
yesterday.
You got some zen going on, Steve.
He's in his big boy pants.
Yeah, it must be the jeans.
Full close today.
Well, open mic night at Fogtown, just say it.
Yeah, okay.
Silent word, we'll figure it out.
If Steve shows up for open mic night, I'm going.
If he
If
does
Steve
that,
goes
I
to
will
open
take
mic
that phrase
night,
as
it's
my-
just because I'll be holding the open mic for somebody else.
It still counts, it still counts.
Anyway,
So,
Those are good points, Steve.
Great. Anything else, Sue? Or?
cool.
Awesome.
All right, everyone have great weekends after, working hard today.
So many rules.
Sorry.